I don't like to preempt what will happen today. Now, before I go any further, let me allow me to introduce the people in the presidential table. Of course, for most of us, the Royal Imperial Lupasong Islamic United Kingdom of Sulu and North Borneo perhaps is strange to us. How come a monarchy could exist in a democratic country like the Philippines? So that will be one question that will be tackled perhaps this afternoon. And let me introduce to you, of course, our king who was being installed, and the queen has been installed last July 3, 2014. Please help me welcome King Mamay Abdurrahman and Queen Helen Abdurrahman. To the leftmost, you might be wondering, this man is a pillar of the Sultanate. He's the only living witness of the story behind this Sultanate that has been erased for a while. Okay, so he is 111 years old, and he is no other than Sultan Sharif Usman. Sir. And to the right of the king, and to the left of the king, is of course our council chairman of the Peace, Defense, Economic Development Council, chairwoman by Amira Rose Sila. And to her left is our Royal Ambassador to the UN, United Nations, and the United States of America, Dr. John Epperson. Next to him is the Chief of Staff of the Royal Armed Forces, Dr. Romel Abubakar. And to the leftmost is the Chief or the Prime Minister of our tribal government, Prime Minister Jose Injinto. So to give you a preview of what will happen today, let me give you our chairwoman for the Peace, Defense, Economic Development Council, chaired by Amira Rose. Oh, okay. So for a brief introduction, let me introduce to you Dr. John Epperson.
Thank you, Paul. We had the PowerPoint. We thought it would be helpful, especially for those first-timers at the press con, for a backgrounder. So go ahead and, it's just a brief overview of how we got here today and the relevant documents, which are very, very relevant and, of course, foundational. The purchase points, and of course we're not going to go long over the history of the Muslim plight. It's not a Muslim issue. It's a geographic issue. It's not a racial, it's just geography. December 10th, 1898, the Treaty of Paris. U.S. and Spain paid $20 million, but in that contract, in that sale of property, like a title, was a survey, and that defined the areas. And those areas were Luzon and Visayas into a line. If you read Article 3, the geographic coordinates are actually there, the exact map that was purchased. The specifics of the cession were later clarified in 1900 by the Treaty of Washington. Nobody talks about that. Why? Because it talked about the boundary line between the Philippines and North Borneo was further clarified in the convention between the U.S. and Great Britain, because it involved Borneo. Why? That line was then between Bohol and Sidio, and outside the area of sale was Palawan, Mindanao, Basilan, Sulu, Cebutu, which is now called Tawi-Tawi. It was reflected in all the constitutions since then. All 5 constitutions of the Philippines regarded this nation as Luzon, Visayas, and Aguinaldo said by illegal means and contricity, deception. We have Mindanao. Let Mindanao be ruled by Mindanaoans. It's echoed in the Article 10, which we'll talk about later. When it comes to their sources, if you get the press kit, the sources are not there, but we can give those to you later. I can give you the links for all these documents from the official Gazette of Malacanang. Okay, that's my source, not just Wikipedia. Next slide. Treaty of Washington 1900 specifically said, lying outside the lines described in Article 3, which was what? Cagayan, Sulu, and Sabutu and their dependencies. Cagayan was in reference to everything in northern and central Mindanao. Cagayan de Oro later became a city. Also is an island called Cagayan. Sulu is referring to the Sultan of Sulu and his dependencies. Again, Nanao is another sultan. That's another issue. Next slide. Of course, we didn't just do that as the United States does. They paid an extra $100,000 for these. No, they paid $100,000 for Spain to leave. Okay, at the time of the purchase of Spain, of the Treaty of Paris, there were only 13 camps around the beaches of Mindanao. Spain had never colonized it. That's why they didn't include it in the purchase. But when the Philippines started to be colonized, and here we are how many years later, and America seized Mindanao, oh, we want that. Well, Spain was still here. So they paid Spain $100,000 to leave. General Bates had problems because Mindanao was not included in the sale, so he signed an agreement with the Sultan of Sulu. This was an assignment of a military general to secure this island and make it peaceful because there was problems with the Muslims in southern Mindanao. No, it was a problem with the tribal. The tribal was the hot Mindanao, not just Muslim. Muslim Mindanao was also predominantly southern, but he had problems everywhere. And so he signed this contract with the Sultan of Sulu, and it was in Tausog. Problem? Tausog, word protectorate, was mistranslated by the English interpreter to sovereignty. Hence, another problem. U.S. thinks we have sovereignty? Voila. So then that was signed in 1899. Carpenter came after that and said, we'll make a new treaty with the Sultan of Sulu, signed in 1915 for 99 years. This would reduce the Sultan to spiritual leadership only. This was due to cultural ignorance, religious ignorance. He didn't understand that Islam, your spiritual leader, is the head of Sharia, it is your government. Again, never stopped having a problem with the Muslims in southern Mindanao because they've never been under any other country as far as a government and will never be under any country as a government. Sharia is the only thing that a Muslim will live peacefully under, and they do. March 22nd, 1915, that was signed. And then the U.S. had been delegated to the Philippine government. The administration of the Philippines was property of the U.S. And then, of course, when it was turned back over to the Filipinos and turned into a sovereign nation, the delegation of the authority in the non-purchased area was given to the Philippine government. Absolutely legal for the Philippines to colonize Mindanao, develop Mindanao, and Marcos did that. Probably how much was built here during Marcos' time. So when Carpenter expired, so did the administrative authority of the Philippine government. Control went back to the Sultan in the south per the agreement, and the tribes and the rest of Mindanao. Next slide.